Hello everyone, this will be day 3 of our transformations, and today we will be learning about rotations, exactly what it sounds like. We're rotating around the origin. So for the flap, that does say 90 degrees counterclockwise. And the rule says that if you have a coordinate xy, that transforms into negative yx. So your first step, what we actually do is that we change the sign of whatever y is. So change the y sign. So if it's positive, we're going to go negative. If it's negative, we're going to go positive. And then after you've done that, you switch the x and y. So for example, it has already told us to plot these points, and that's what I've done here. And it's already given us our coordinates. So for example, for point A, we had 2, 1. And we are looking for A prime. So my first step should be change the sign of the y. So this was a positive 1. I'm going to go negative 1. So I've done that. And then I'm going to switch my x and y coordinates. So this became a negative 1, and this was a 2. So up here, that is negative 1, 2. For B prime, for B, we had 3, 8. So I switch the sign of my y, and then I switch my coordinates. So B prime would be a negative 8, 3. And then for C, I had 7, 2. So I changed the sign of my y, and I flip it. So that would be 2, negative 2, 7. So that is my prime coordinates. Then I would just plot them. So negative 1, positive 2, that is my A prime. B prime is negative 8, positive 3, 1, 2, 3, that's B prime. And C is negative 2, 7, so negative 2, 7, this is my C prime. So I connect my points, and this is what my original figure looks like, rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. Let's move on to our next degree. As you can see here, I've already plotted my figure, so my pre-image is already done, of course, according to these points. But for 180 degrees rotation around the origin, the rule says you have your x and your y coordinate, you rotate it to a negative x and a negative y. So all you do here is just change the signs. So for example, in x, we had negative 5, negative 1. So both of these will become positive in our x prime. So for our x prime here, our x is now a positive 5 and our y is a positive 1. So I don't want you guys to think about these to say make both of our coordinate pairs negative. It just means change the sign. So if it's negative, make it a positive, and if it's a positive, make it a negative. So let's look at some other points. Y, that was a negative 7 and a positive 6. So then that of course means we change it to a positive and our 6 to a negative. So our coordinate points for y prime now become 7, negative 6. And then for z, we had a negative 1, 2, I will be changing that to a positive, my y to a negative. So z prime over here should say 1, negative 2. So let's plot these points and see where it takes us. So x is 5, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go up 1. That is x prime. Y is 7, negative 6. So around here. That is our y prime, and z is 1, negative 2, z prime. And this is what my pre-image looks like, rotated 180 degrees around the origin. So again, do not think of these as make both of them negative, but think of it more as change the signs. And then finally, let's move on to 270 degrees. 270 degrees counterclockwise. So the rule for that states, you have your coordinate x and y, it gets rotated 270 degrees, and then it becomes y negative x. So this is similar to our 90 degrees, but we kind of go the other direction. So the first thing you should do is to go ahead and change your signs. Of course, this is just our x, so change the sign of x. And then what you're going to do is switch places. So switch places. Switch x and y. So for example, we had point P, and that was a -8, a -5. So we changed the sign of x, so this is going to become a positive. And then P prime is just going to have those but flipped. So -5, +8 will be our P prime. So -5, +8. For Q prime, we had -6, 0. So first thing I'm going to do is change the sign of my x. That's going to become a positive, and then I will be flipping them. So Q prime is going to be 0, +6. And then lastly, we have point R. That was -2, -1. Let's change the sign of that x. And so R prime would be -1, +2. Again, any number, or any coordinate that has this negative in front of it in our rule, that does not mean make that x negative. It means change the sign of that x. Of course, if it has it in y, then it's to change the sign of y. But in this case, for 270, you change the sign of x. Let's plot these points. So that is going to be -5, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to go all the way up to 8. That's P prime. Q 0, 6. And then R prime is -1, +2. That's R prime. Connect my points. And that is what this figure should look like, rotated 270 degrees counterclockwise. And so when you're doing these, I do want you to keep this order. If you can do it in your head, you can do it in your head. But if you can't, write it down first, change the sign, then come over and flip them like I showed you. But other than that, we should be good. If you have questions, come to me during Monday through Wednesday, be lunch.